Welcome to the biggest conspiracy theory iceberg, part 7. This is part 7 of a 30-layer iceberg, so we are going to be finishing off layer 6 today. We only got through half of it last time, and we're going to be finishing the other half today. But we can't start the rest of the iceberg without mentioning the sponsor of today's video, Babbel. If you've always wanted to learn a new language but can't seem to find the time in your day to do so, Babbel makes it easier than ever. Just studying 15 minutes a day on their app or on a browser can make all the difference. And the thing I really enjoy about Babbel is the way that it goes over dialogue. Anyone can hop on any other language learning tool and listen to their Google Translator voice speak in that signature monotone voice. But Babbel has really well-spoken dialogue that really does help when learning a new language for the first time. There are even lessons that go over practicing conversation, such as this one from my first ever lesson. After I finished putting all my answers in, I was able to replay the entire conversation back so I could hear a fluent version of how that conversation would sound in real time.
Hola.
Hola, yo soy Lucía.
Mucho gusto.
They make you learn various words and phrases that are applicable to real life conversation, and they throw these words and phrases at you in all types of different situations. Then they get you to practice writing and using the phrases in actual dialogue, which is all incredibly beneficial. So if you want to start speaking a new language with confidence, download Babbel using my link below for a whopping 60% off. You can even do it while listening to this video in the background. It's that easy. So start learning your new language today, and a massive thanks to Babbel for sponsoring today's video. Without further ado, let's finish off layer 6 of the Chart of Truth iceberg, Dropa Stones. The Dropa Stones are in reference to 700 plus discs that were found in the mountains of China. A group of archaeologists discovered these stones in a cave in 1938, and when they examined them up close, they noticed that they had inscriptions similar to hieroglyphics. The really bizarre thing was that the hieroglyphics actually appear to tell the story of an alien race that crash landed on Earth and managed to make contact with the locals of that area. Supposedly, this made its debut in a German book that translates to Vegetarian Universe. The weird thing about this entire event is the fact that the Dropa Stones haven't actually been found. It began as a story similar to a folk legend that gained popularity in the 1970s and has since been widely circulated around the internet. So the story of the Dropa Stones remains a topic of debate and skepticism, not just among conspiracy theorists, but historians and archaeologists. Organic black helicopters. According to this theory, certain black helicopters that can be seen flying around certain areas have been said to be closely associated with secret organizations. Most notably, people think that they're associated with secret government agencies. People have reported seeing these black helicopters specifically because they are noticeable for not having any pilots in them and not having any markings or logos that would tell them exactly what company they're from. Now, the crazy part of this theory is that it proposes that these are not machines, but rather actual living things created by the government in order to carry out advanced surveillance over specific areas of the world that have supernatural events occurring regularly. Advocates of the organic black helicopter theory believe that these machines are capable of manipulating and influencing human behavior, going as far as to claim these helicopters are involved in many abduction cases and missing people cases. Aside from this conspiracy, when I read this, I've been reading a lot of Junji Ito lately, and this would make a crazy short story. Just imagine like humongous living creature in the sky that's only purpose is to fly around and capture people. I guess we already kind of have that with the hanging balloons, but I was picturing more like a living helicopter just swooping down and eating people inside. That'd be freaking crazy. Civil War sightings. There have been reports of ghosts and supernatural occurrences that have taken place near old Civil War battles, with people believing that the severe trauma and obvious war battle bloodshed has led to ghosts and supernatural things manifesting themselves into these locations. Whether it's apparitions of dead soldiers or just unexplained sounds and shrieks for help. Just all around weird, spooky, creepy stuff has been reported to happen around these old Civil War battle locations. If you are a believer in ghosts and anything alike, then this makes sense, as many claim that sites where traumatizing actions have taken place are basically the birthplace for supernatural and crazy ghost-like activity. MIRL Cults. MIRL stands for Meet in Real Life. So from my understanding, this is typically used in online chats, whether it be on Discord or group chats formed from video games or any type of online gathering of people. So the idea of MIRL cults is basically that these cults could be formed through various facets such as Discord, and while they are formed online, they will actually meet up in person eventually in order to do nefarious, malicious acts for whatever the cult leader decides they should be doing. Usually for their own personal agenda or their own personal goals that make no sense at all. From the cases that I've read that are labeled as MIRL cults, it's very clear that there is a base explanation of starting online, having one person form an entire group chat of people, and then shifting those people into meeting up in person, where the group owner or the owner of the group chat would blackmail and force other people to do whatever they please. Helios 522. On August 14th, 2005, Helios Airway Flight 522 experienced one of the worst fatal cases in air traffic history. You see, the plane didn't crash for any obvious reasons. It's not like there was like an engine failure while they were flying, or there was some kind of severe weather storm that hit the plane and caused it to go down. This plane actually went down because someone forgot to uncheck one single setting during the flight pre-checks. The crew of the plane forgot to set the pressurization system to automatic. They had set it to manual during one of their other checks, and when they were going to go fly the plane, they had 3 different checks beforehand, and everyone somehow missed it. And with that one setting set to manual and not automatic, they actually flew the plane into the air without a pressurized cabin. And if you fly without a pressurized cabin, at some point you'll reach an altitude that is so high, everyone that's in the plane will eventually suffer from hypoxia, which is essentially suffocating to death because your brain isn't getting enough oxygen. And that's exactly what happened on Helios 522. Every single passenger, person, or whoever was on the plane suffered from hypoxia, passed out, and died. And then this resulted in what many call a ghost flight, because the plane was literally just flying by itself at that point. And it took over 2.5 hours from when they started suffering from hypoxia to actually crash landing. The plane ended up crashing near some mountains in the middle of Greece. There are a few details of the story that seem a little bit off to me. For example, in order for this to have happened exactly as I had already explained, this means that the crew had to have overlooked the pressurization system not just once, but 3 different times. Once during the pre-flight check, once after the start check, and then once after takeoff. So there was 3 different opportunities for the crew and everyone that's on board to check and see that this one setting was not turned on properly, and everyone somehow missed it. For those at home wondering, like, why isn't there some kind of alarm or notification that would let the team know, hey, you guys forgot to check this one little detail on the plane? That's exactly what happened. There was an alarm that sounded because the pressurization system was not set to the right setting. Because none of us were on the plane, we don't really know why the crew didn't take this alarm and go, oh, the pressurization system is obviously off, let's go turn it back on. So people's best guess as to why the crew ignored the alarm isn't that they ignored it, but that they mistook the alarm sound for another alarm sound, because there's plenty of signals on a plane for when things go wrong. And it's assumed, because none of us were on the plane, that they must have mistook the alarm for the pressurization system as the alarm for the takeoff warning. And because that's a more common thing on planes apparently, it could be seen as a very easy mistake to happen. Basically, it just feels like there's a lot of coincidences and like stars aligning for this one plane crash to happen. But I mean, maybe that is just because that's what happens sometimes. That's why sometimes planes crash, because there is just a lot of things that just line up one day and just cause these crazy tragedies to happen, but we really don't know what happened. Like with all missing planes and all missing people and all these crazy mysteries, we won't ever truly know what happened on the plane. And because of that, a lot of conspiracy theorists have been led to believe that this was somehow orchestrated, either for insurance fraud or there being important people on the plane that the government wanted out, or even having the plane somehow intercepted by the military. But all in all, we don't know what really happened, which is why we have so many theories as to what happened on Helios Flight 522. Tartarian Language. Similar to other lost cities and empires like Atlantis, there is another conspiracy about a lost entity known as Tartaria, aka the Tartarian Empire. This conspiracy formed when people noticed a lot of different locations on maps, such as one called Tartary, or on other maps it would be read as Tartar or Tartarian. All of these three names have led to people believing that there had to have been some place known as the Tartarian Empire, and as such there had to be some kind of language associated with that entity. There doesn't appear to be any solid proof that the Tartarian Empire actually existed beyond speculation. If you happen to have some solid proof of this, feel free to comment it, because I would love to take a look at that, because I was very interested in this one when I was researching it. Anyways, for those that want to know the story of the Tartarian Empire, the story goes that some event or some catastrophe wiped out the Tartarian Empire, and all their best work was swept under the rug, with big government choosing to hide their existence entirely. Believers in this theory suggest that cathedrals, palaces, and other massive grand buildings are evidence of Tartaria's existence, and that Tartaria's best work was repurposed and credited to other civilizations that had nothing to do with it, effectively killing the Tartarian Empire's history. And as I said before, tied to this ancient civilization is their language, which people believe still lives on today, with some pointing to inscriptions or symbols found on these grand buildings to be living proof that this language and this empire did in fact exist. Is it true? I don't really know. The only living proof I've managed to find is this video titled "This is All That Remains of the Tartarian Language," which features a video of children learning another language called Tatar language or Tatar language. I don't really know how to pronounce that, but this is the official language of the Republic of Tatarstan, not Tartary. So while it could be related, it still is kind of up in the air as far as I'm concerned. Breatharianism. Some people out there believe that you can go your entire existence without needing food or water. Instead, you can rely solely on breathing for your sustenance, with those who practice breatharianism explaining that all the nourishment that you need can be obtained directly from the air around you, the sunlight, and the universe's energy. Now, the human body is capable of some amazing things, and one of the first examples that comes to my mind of pushing the human body to its limits is David Blaine, who is no stranger to starving himself, famously surviving 44 days in a box without food. He did, however, have water that entire time. So I like to think that there is some truth to breatharianism, but I don't take it too literally. I see it more as a representation that simple breathing techniques and meditation can lead you to a long-lasting, healthy life. But the notion that you'd be able to go your entire life without food or water just seems a little bit ludicrous to me. Asian blood types. If you've ever heard of personality types or horoscopes, then you should understand this one pretty easily, because Asian blood types is basically going to fall under that same category. There are a good amount of people in countries where Asian cultures are prevalent that believe blood types and a person's personality go hand in hand. From the sources that I've read, type A's are seen as more approachable and friendly, type B's are seen as more creative and the passionate type, type O is seen as a more confident and leadership type person, and type AB is, seen as a mix of type A and type B, some characteristics from each of them combined into one person. If there's any merit to this idea, I honestly wouldn't be able to tell you. I think there's just as much merit as like regular personality types and horoscopes. I'm sure there could be correlation to data like this, but I wouldn't be the one to be able to tell you a complete fact or an answer to that. Flannan's Lighthouse. Flannan's Isles Lighthouse is located on an island known simply as Eilean Moor. This lighthouse was made in 1899 in order to provide navigation assistance to those that were navigating the treacherous waters nearby. The lighthouse ran as expected with a team of 3 lighthouse keepers maintaining everything. But something strange happened in December of the year 1900. A relief vessel known as the Hesperus made its way to the lighthouse. When the Hesperus landed at the dock, the crew noticed that operations were not going as usual, as no one was there to greet them when they landed. They also noticed that the lighthouse was unmanned and no lighthouse keepers were anywhere to be found. An investigation of the lighthouse soon followed, where they found a logbook detailing everything that happened leading up to their disappearance. The last known entries imply that there was some kind of disaster or catastrophe that hit the lighthouse, suggesting that there was very severe weather storms, and judging by the fact that the front entrance to the lighthouse was severely damaged, you could kind of put 2 and 2 together. The investigation also showed that there was a half-eaten meal on the table and a chair that it looked as though someone had left the chair sporadically in a hurry. So some entity or something outside of the lighthouse, whether it was ocean waves crashing at the door, severe weather storms, or some other crazy unknown supernatural thing, caused the 3 men inside of the lighthouse to leave their spot and actually go explore and do something else, which led to their disappearance. So from whatever happened, it's clear that sometime before the night of the investigation and before the night of the Hesperus landing, the 3 men just mysteriously disappeared and left no trace of where they were, like, at all. Of course, we have the half-eaten meal on the chair, but besides those 2 details, there's no telling what actually happened to them. A popular theory is that they were swept away by the ocean waves. Other people believe that there had to have been some kind of alien abduction or some supernatural mythical creature came and killed them all. There's so many theories from this just because of how open-ended the experience was. Biogenic oil. I believe biogenic oil is in reference to the hypothesis titled abiogenic petroleum origin, which is just fancy talk for saying that oil isn't the natural occurring process that we all believe it is. So oil, or in this case petroleum, is said to be a fossil fuel, basically an ancient organism such as marine animals or plants died and buried themselves on the ocean floor, and then over millions and millions of years, the pressure from those organisms being so far down below created petroleum and what is more simply known as oil. This seems simple enough, but conspiracy theorists believe that there is no way that random animals and plants dying can account for just how much petroleum we have, leading to this theory, biogenic oil, suggesting there has to be something in planet Earth independent of the animals and plants that is somehow generating the end result, which is petroleum. As for how this is a conspiracy, I don't really know, as it's more scientific than the other theories on this list, but I'm gonna just move on to the next one. Malbolge Programming. If you're scared of robots or AI taking over the world someday, then I'd skip over this entry entirely. Malbolge Programming is a programming language that was made intentionally difficult for humans to understand. And I'm not going to sit here and explain exactly how this language works, because as you can see on screen, it's incredibly difficult to even understand one piece of text. But from my understanding, it uses a variety of self-altering code, base 3 arithmetic, and unique operations created by the creator Ben Olmsted. And through all those 3 things, we get this jumble of this mess of characters that somehow spells and creates programming. It took someone nearly 2 years to create the first Malbolge program, and it wasn't even written by a human. It was actually created by an algorithm designed by Andrew Cook. And that in and of itself is crazy, but just to sell how crazy this programming language is, what you're seeing on screen says the words hello world. All these characters, it says hello world when you understand how Malbolge programming language is written, but obviously the code is less than desirable to look at. Ben Olmsted created what is deemed one of the hardest and most impractical pieces of code for humans. Computers, on the other hand, can handle this code a hell of a lot easier than we could, which has led to many believing that if AI gets to the point where they find out or realize what they can do with Malbolge programming, they'll use it in order to communicate with each other and keep us none the wiser, because obviously we're not going to sit there and decipher a very long string of messages written in this code. If this long string of characters says hello world, imagine trying to decode an entire plan detailing the destruction of humanity. It would be nearly impossible. There would be way too much code for one person to properly translate. However, I don't think we'll need to worry about that anytime soon, because the amount of free space it would take just to store this type of Malbolge data would be way too expensive for anyone to feasibly pursue. But I guess it's not outside the realm of possibilities. Manatees are humans. No, it's not like that. Manatees are humans deals more with evolution than someone being taken apart body part by body part and turning them into a manatee, human centipede style. So at its core, it's the idea that manatees and humans basically come from the same branch of life. Similar to how believers in evolution think that man came from monkey, believers in the manatees are human conspiracy think that it's entirely possible that manatees came from humans or some human type being that lived in water, and over the course of millions of years it slowly developed into what we see today. Valis. Philip K. Dick created a novel titled Valis that was published in 1981. This is widely considered to be Dick's most popular work, and for good reason. The book dives heavily into philosophy, Gnosticism, and the author's personal struggles with mental illness and what can only be described as mystical and mythical encounters, with the book being well known for its very complex nature. Similar to other entries on the Iceberg, there are a select few that have read and consumed the book Valis that think Philip K. Dick wasn't telling a work of fiction, but actually recounting his real life experiences and trying to communicate his experiences through this book, claiming that Dick had encountered all of the real entities and creatures similar to the ones shown off in his novel. Others believe the very complex nature of the book means there has to be some deep code embedded within that has yet to be found out. Regardless of whether or not you believe or buy into any of this, I think it's worth giving Philip Dick some credit, because me personally, I would be flattered if people took my life's work and thought it was so damn good that there had to be more to it because of how good it was. There has to be more to it than meets the eye. So a little round of applause for this guy creating something so memorable, because doing something like that is not easy by any means. Bunker in Mars. Very self-explanatory theory. This is just the theory that suggests on Mars there is some kind of secret underground bunker or some secret base on Mars where people like world elites or insert crazy secret organization here will use in order to take refuge in case some catastrophe or some crazy incident takes out Earth. They'll be able to flee to Mars in order to survive in the meantime. Sycamore Knoll. On Google Earth, you can find an unusual geological feature within the Los Angeles Ventura County coastline. This tiny little spot, when zoomed in, looks like this. Because of the bizarre shape, the plateau has been the source of many theories that all point to the same idea: an underwater UFO base. Scientists have accredited the strange shape to geological and ocean forces at play along the coastline, while others believe that alien crafts descend into the water in order to access this secret base. The location here has been nicknamed Sycamore Knoll. As for why, I don't really know. The area is definitely out of the ordinary when it comes to just land masses found out of the ocean, so it's no wonder that this spot has gained a lot of notoriety in recent times. Reactionless Drive. This idea is kind of similar to the negative entropy idea that we went over in the last video, but basically reactionless drive is the concept that aims to produce energy in order to thrust rockets or vehicles forward without needing to expel any type of mass, gas, or propellant in the other direction. Because as we all should know, rockets move by expelling a combination of fuel and other scientific gases and crap out to the other side in order for it to push forward. And that's because of Newton's third law. For every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. But what if we didn't need anything to expel forward? What if we could just move forward through our own energy expenditure? Like, what if a rocket did not need to expel something out in order to move forward? This is basically what reactionless drive is getting at. The central idea is to basically work around needing anything to propel the rocket and instead getting the propulsion through other means, such as manipulation of energy. If you were able to achieve this, you could theoretically have access to seemingly unlimited energy, such as in the case of negative entropy. And if you had access to unlimited energy, you could create real perpetual motion machines, which are machines that don't need any external energy source in order to keep themselves moving, which would revolutionize life as we know it. But alas, this is just a concept, as achieving this would fundamentally break so many laws of physics. Kap Dwa. Kap Dwa is a rumored 12-foot giant with 2 heads, and there appears to be 2 similar-ish stories as to how this giant was found and captured. The first is that around 1673, Spanish sailors found the man, captured him, and brought them aboard their ship. And obviously the man, being a 12-foot giant and strong, was able to break out of his chains, which caused all of these sailors to lose their minds, and they ended up killing him. And then they stuffed and mummified him, and he made his way to the US, becoming the subject of many of these sideshows or freak shows. The other is that the giant was already dead when they found him on a beach, and the natives of that area stuffed him, mummified the body, and somehow it still made its way to the US. After consuming the entire story, this whole thing reads more like a hoax in order to coerce tourists and unknowing locals to pay money to see, well, this. I will say that it's been reported that the body was examined by physicians in the 1960s who all agreed that there wasn't any obvious signs of it being fake. And given the fact that there is a substantial amount of conflicting scientific data that points to this not being possible, such as the fact that, first of all, being that tall is already a very, very small percentage, and also at the same time being tall, being born as conjoined twin or having 2 heads is also just very unlikely. We have ourselves a folktale at the end of the day, because it is unlikely that this happened, but because there is no obvious signs of it being fake, there's going to be a lot of believers in this idea. So let me know what you think in the comments below, because I honestly really am undecided on this one, just because there is a picture and it does look pretty convincing. I will say it is pretty convincing. Dr. Robert Morse. Dr. Robert Morse is an alternative health practitioner that is quite active on YouTube, gaining a following for his belief in herbal formulas to support so-called detoxification of the human body in order to promote a healthy organ system. He has tons of videos going over various methods, techniques, and diets that one can do in order to improve their overall health. It's important that I explain this is not official health advice, as most of his work isn't really accepted by those in the same field as him. However, I don't see anything wrong with people getting into veganism and wanting to feel like they are eating clean and healthy. I think the pseudoscience and conspiracy part of things comes in from the notion that he has some rather untraditional techniques when it comes to diagnosing illnesses in his patients, such as iridiology, which is the idea that you can tell someone's entire health history and current health problems by just examining their eye. That's just one of many discussions about various different cancers, treatments for the lymphatic system, and overall just his personal thoughts and procedures on how he handles these types of health problems. Again, not official medical advice, so please be advised when you go on your own little deep dive into this channel, just keep that in mind that it's not official medical advice. And with that, we are at the end of today's video. If you made it to the end of today's video, huge round of applause for you. Thank you so much for watching at the end of today's video. And speaking of thanks, it is time for the patron shout out. So I wanted to give a huge thanks to everyone that has joined the Patreon. I've had a lot of support in the last few months. It's been super awesome. I know I've been taking a lot more time between uploads, but it is because I'm preparing for a few, I'll say, campaigns in the coming months. I have some other stuff happening in the background that I just cannot wait to get to you guys. It's going to be super cool when all of that stuff drops. But if you are on screen, thank you so much for being a top tier patron on the Patreon. Even if you're not on screen, if you're one of the lower tiers, thank you. Like, every single amount of support, however much you want to help, or even just watching the videos, like, just thank you so much for going out of your way and taking the time to join the Patreon and just support me, because every little bit helps, and I always love saying thanks at the end of all my videos. Now, with all that said, I will see you all in the next video. Thanks for watching.